She grew up invisible, ignored, and forgotten. But what she found hidden inside a crumbling wall turned her entire village upside down. Stay with me, because this story will change the way you see yourself. The dust never seemed to settle in Kano village. It hung in the air like a second sky, red and heavy, coating the zinc rooftops, the market stalls, and the bent backs of people who had long stopped looking up. In a corner of this village, in a two-room mud house with a leaking roof, lived a girl named Amina. Amina was 19, thin as a river reed, quiet the way water is quiet before a storm. She lived with her mother, Halima, a woman who carried grief the way others carry firewood, always on her back, never setting it down. Amina's father, Isa, had died when she was only 6 years old, leaving behind nothing but a worn-out prayer mat, a photograph with cracked edges, and silence. So much silence. Their compound was always crowded with relatives who never brought food but always brought opinions. Aunties who clicked their tongues when Amina walked past. Uncles who spoke over Halima's head as if she were furniture. Cousins who wore hand-me-down arrogance and pointed at Amina's patched school uniform like it was a personal insult. "That one," her cousin Rita said one afternoon, loud enough for the whole compound to hear. "She walks like she owns something. She owns nothing. Her father left them with nothing." The other cousins laughed. Amina stood by the firewood stack, gripping the handle of a broom, staring at the ground. She did not cry. She had run out of tears for Rita's mouth a long time ago. Halima watched from the doorway, eyes dull, lips pressed tight. She wanted to defend her daughter. But what would she say? Rita was not entirely wrong. There was nothing. There had never been anything. That evening, Amina sat outside under a half-moon and whispered to the sky the way she always did when she needed to speak and had no one to listen. She spoke to her father. She told him she was tired, that she was disappearing, that every day, a small piece of her faded like chalk in the rain. She did not know he had left her an answer. She did not know it was hiding in the wall. It started with the rains. 3 days of heavy, unforgiving rain that sent water rushing under doorways and turned the compound into a shallow lake. When the rain finally stopped, the back wall of Amina and Halima's room had developed a crack, wide and ragged, running from the ceiling halfway to the floor like a scar. Halima sent Amina to press clay into the gap before the next rain came. Amina obeyed without complaint, mixing red clay and dry grass the way her mother had taught her. She pressed the mixture into the crack with both hands, fingers deep in the cold mud. Then her right hand hit something hard. She stopped, pulled her fingers back, pressed again. There was definitely something solid buried inside the wall. Not stone, not wood. Something wrapped. Her heart beat 3 fast knocks. She called for her mother. Halima came, looked at the wall, then looked at her daughter. Something shifted in her face. A shadow crossed it. Not fear exactly. More like recognition. Like a door she thought was locked was suddenly ajar. "Dig it out," Halima said softly. Amina worked carefully, pulling the old clay away. What emerged, wrapped in oilcloth and bound with twine, was a tin box. Small, rusted at the corners, but sealed tight. Inside was a letter. The handwriting was her father's. She recognized it from the one birthday card he had sent her the year before he died. The letters were careful, a little uneven, like a man who had taught himself to write. "My daughter," it began. "If you are reading this, I am gone and the world has been unkind to you. I know this. I have always known this is how it would be. But I need you to know what you come from. I need you to know that you are not nothing. You were never nothing. There is land. Your grandfather's land. 40 acres outside Kano, past the old mango road. My brother Joel took it when I fell sick. He told people I signed it away. I did not. The real papers are with a man named David, an elder lawyer in Kaduna City. He has kept them for 12 years, waiting for you or your mother to come. You have a name, Amina. You have a legacy. Go claim it." Amina's hands were shaking. Halima had pressed herself against the wall, one hand over her mouth, tears running down her face in steady, silent rivers. The village outside continued its noise, children shouting, goats complaining, Rita's laughter ringing across the compound. None of them knew that inside this small room, the entire future had just shifted. Wait, her uncle stole her family's land. And there's a lawyer who has been holding papers for 12 years. If this story is gripping you, smash that like button and subscribe to Folktales by Inaya. Comment below. Do you think David the lawyer still has those papers? Or has something gone wrong? What's coming next will shock you. Amina did not sleep that night. She lay on her mat and read the letter 11 times. Each time, it felt more real and more impossible in equal measure. 40 acres. A lawyer. A name. By morning, she had made a decision. I am going to Kaduna, she told her mother. Halima looked at her daughter, really looked at her, for the first time in what felt like years. She saw something in Amina's face that made her straighten her own spine. A fire. Small, yes. But fire. I will come with you, Halima said. They told no one. Not the aunties. Not the uncles. Certainly not Rita. They packed a small bag, borrowed transport fare from a kind neighbor, and boarded a bus before sunrise, the tin box pressed under Amina's arm like a shield. Kaduna City was enormous and indifferent in the way cities always are. People moved with purpose, shoulders forward, eyes ahead. Amina felt her courage flicker. She was a village girl in a faded wrapper and worn sandals. Nobody here would take her seriously. But she had a name. David. And her father had written an address. They found the office on a narrow street behind a row of provision stores. A small sign, David Osei, Legal Services. An old man with silver temples and kind eyes opened the door. When Amina said her father's name, Isa, the old man went completely still. Then he sat down heavily and covered his face with both hands. I have been waiting, David said finally, his voice rough with emotion. I have been waiting 12 years. I sent word twice to your village, but your uncle told people your mother had moved away. I did not know how to find you. He opened a drawer and produced a manila envelope, thick with documents. Land registration papers. Survey certificates. Her grandfather's original deed, with Isa's name clearly listed as rightful heir. The land is yours, David said, looking directly at Amina. It has always been yours. Amina pressed her lips together to stop them trembling. Halima gripped her daughter's hand under the table. Outside, the city kept moving, indifferent, enormous. But in this small office, a girl who had been told she owned nothing discovered that she had owned something her whole life. She had just not known where to look. The bus ride home felt different. Amina sat with the envelope on her lap, and for the first time in her life, she did not hunch her shoulders or fold herself small to take up less space. She sat straight. She looked out the window at the flat red earth passing by and felt something she had no word for. Something between grief and gratitude, between rage and peace. Her father had seen her. Even from across death, he had seen her and said, "You matter." When they arrived back in Kano village, it was late afternoon. The compound was full of the usual noise. Auntie Rosa arguing with a market woman at the gate, children chasing a chicken in circles, Uncle Joel sitting under the neem tree with his radio. Uncle Joel, the one who had taken the land. He looked up when Amina and Halima walked in. His eyes moved to the envelope in Amina's hand. Something in his face changed. A tightening. The slight, guilty shift of a man who recognizes what he has done returning to find him. Amina stopped in front of him. She did not shout. She did not cry. She simply held out one document, a copy David had made for her, and said, "This is my father's land. Our land. I know everything." The compound went quiet the way it does before thunder. Rita appeared in a doorway, mouth slightly open. Auntie Rosa stopped mid-argument. Even the chicken paused. Uncle Joel looked at the paper. His jaw worked silently. He was a big man, big voice, big presence, but in this moment he seemed to shrink, the way a fire does when the wind shifts. "Amina," he started. "I have the original documents," she said calmly. "A lawyer in Kaduna has copies. I have already begun the legal process." More silence. Halima stood beside her daughter, and for the first time in years, her back was straight too. What happened next surprised everyone, perhaps even Amina. Uncle Joel did not explode. He did not threaten. He looked at his niece, really looked at her, and in his eyes was something that might have been shame. Real shame. The kind that does not argue. He nodded once. Slowly, Rita disappeared back into the doorway. Auntie Rosa suddenly had somewhere else to be. The compound emptied with the quiet efficiency of people who know they have been caught. Amina looked at her mother. Halima was crying again, but differently this time. Her shoulders were not bent. Her face was lifted. The village would talk. Let it talk. Amina had stopped being invisible, and she had no intention of disappearing again. 3 months later, the land was restored. It was a slow process. Papers, meetings, an elder council that at first resisted and then, faced with undeniable documentation and a steady-eyed young woman who refused to be rushed, relented. David traveled to Kano village twice. Each time, Amina sat at the table beside him, learning the language of legal things, asking questions, writing notes in the margins of documents with a borrowed pen. She had never felt so awake. The 40 acres of land sat past the old mango road. Fertile, red-soiled, half-wild from years of neglect but alive with possibility. The first morning Amina walked it with her mother, they did not speak. They just walked, their feet on ground that had always been theirs, feeling the strange sacredness of a thing returned. Halima knelt and pressed her palm flat against the earth. She stayed like that for a long time. Amina stood beside her, looking out at the tree line, the sky, the distant shimmer of a small stream she had not noticed before. She thought of her father, of his careful handwriting, his hidden letter, the impossible patience of a man who had trusted that one day his daughter would find her way to this exact moment. You have a name, Amina. You have a legacy. She understood now that the land was not the real inheritance. The land was the proof. The real inheritance was what he had seen in her before she had ever seen it in herself, the certainty that she was worth fighting for. Word spread through the village the way all truth eventually spreads, first in whispers, then openly, and finally loudly enough that it could no longer be denied. People began to look at Amina differently. Some with respect, some with embarrassment, a few with the particular discomfort of those who had been wrong and know it. Rita came to her one evening, alone, without her usual audience. I am sorry, Rita said. The words came out stiff, like clothes worn for the first time. I was unkind to you. Amina looked at her cousin. The old pain was still there, she would not pretend otherwise. But she had learned in these 3 months that bitterness is a heavy thing to carry, and she had already put down enough heavy things. I know, Amina said simply, and left it there. She did not take on rice farming or sell plots for quick money. Instead, with David's help and Halima's quiet, growing confidence, she began to plan. A small farm first. Then a community grain store that other struggling families could use. Then, one day, maybe, a school because she remembered what it felt like to be a girl who had nowhere to put her mind. The village still had dust. It still had noise and gossip and goats in the wrong places. But Amina moved through it differently now. Not invisibly, not defiantly, but with the particular grace of someone who knows exactly who she is and where she belongs. The girl who had whispered to the sky, asking her father if he remembered her, had her answer now. He had always remembered. He had built her a door and hidden it in a wall, trusting her to find it when she was ready. She had been ready. She just hadn't known it yet. And that is how Amina claimed everything that was hers. What a journey, from invisible to unstoppable. If this story moved you, please like this video, subscribe to Folktales by Inaya, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Drop a comment. What part of Amina's story hit you the hardest? I read every comment. Turn on your notifications so you never miss a story. Until then, remember, your legacy is waiting for you to claim it.